is going to give us an idea about how we can improve our writing, okay? So first, about me, I'm Ming, and I'm from Upswing Academy. We offer all kinds of learning programs. Well, we're making it fun for students from all age groups. Okay, so today it's all about high school writing. So writing can be difficult. Nobody say you can learn writing easily, but I think with proper planning, with proper guidance, writing can be fun, and everyone can improve their writing in many different ways. So today I have Andrew with us, and Andrew actually has been a graduate from Rotman Business School and also OEZ, University of Toronto. So it's a rare person I've ever seen have a both business degree and also an education degree. So here I will actually give the room to Andrew, who will start an introduction about the program, and also he will be looking at some of your submission as well. I know a few of you actually submit a short writing to Andrew yesterday and this morning. So thank you for doing that. So this really helps us to understand how well you can use a language. So, okay, so Andrew, the floor is yours, and let's start.
Okay, great. Thanks. You might have to turn off your mic just because there's an echo. And then, so hi guys, so I'm Andrew, nice to be here. I'm just gonna share my screen really quickly, and then you guys should be able to see what I can see, which is, okay, so yeah, so I wanted to introduce myself, show you guys a really quick PowerPoint, just some slides about how this course came to be, and then more interestingly, show you about this course. Up here, if you take a look, are all the links. And basically what I'm going to be doing in a second, if I just click on one link, here is the course, the Google Classroom course. We're going to go through it, and basically this is the course which we could be doing online, which is very stimulating, very interesting, and teaches some writing skills. So let me start here with this PPT. I mean, hopefully you can see it. Now, if you guys have any questions, what's really useful about this Zoom is you should be able to chat somewhere. Let's see. Chat here. If I write, hi, it's Andrew, you guys should be able to see this. You can ask questions here to me, to myself, or me. I like doing this because if you guys have been online already, you probably noticed the online environment is a little bit different. You can have one person who's teaching and talking, and then another person who's typing. All right, so hopefully right now what you see is a PowerPoint slide in front of you. That's me. Boy, the doorbell keeps ringing a lot. I guess more students are coming in. That's me a couple years ago. Basically, I've been teaching high school for the past couple of years. Let's see, can I move the slide here? Come on, slide. Oh, yeah. So it's true. I know a lot of you guys are going into high school and may be interested to know that I've been in university for a while. I went to business school at Rotman, which was quite a good program. And then I've been very involved in education. I've studied education for a long time. I studied teaching and learning in particular. And then I've worked at a couple schools. Here is basically the basic idea of the course. We are convinced, confident, very excited that we can improve writing skills one step at a time. This is supposed to be a ladder. The idea is that we start with some basic writing activities around writing short answers and paragraphs, and we move all the way up to essays. So what's the story about that? You guys may know the Ontario curriculum. I don't know if you've seen this document. Certainly it's for parents to see. And for some of you, this will be more useful in a year or two. But basically inside, it says what it expects students to be able to do. And they expect students to be able to develop reading and writing skills. This expectation is supposed to be something which all teachers are encouraging. All teachers in high school, no matter what subject, are encouraging students to develop reading and writing skills. Here are the writing skills which you guys generally need to develop. You need to know how to develop a main idea and supporting details. You need to know how to organize information. And you need to do it in a way which uses correct spelling, grammar, punctuation, all of these things. Then what you may have heard about is that at the end of grade 10, or sometimes later, but eventually everyone has to do some type of standardized literacy test. I did it when I was in high school a long, long time ago. Basically, this is what we are working backwards from. We are saying, why don't we look at this literacy school test, figure out all the things you guys need to know, and then organize it in a course. So the literacy school test has the curriculum from grade 7, grade 8, grade 9 all together, and that's how we've designed our course in principle. Wow, the bell doesn't stop ringing. Here is what I want you to see. Now this is the background. This is not the exciting stuff yet. This is just basically if you wanted to figure out, okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to learn how to write? There's a number of writing tasks. Some of them are long writing tasks, some of them short writing tasks. And there's a very, very specific way that they're scored. This is a background. When I show you our course, here is our A+ writing course. Our job is to help you develop skills to answer these type of questions. So we've got 8 units, and we go through 1 unit a week. And each unit is supposed to have very, very interesting literature, reading, sometimes videos, basically something which is supposed to be stimulating. We discuss it, and then you get a chance to practice writing. So here's an example of an essay which we might read. It's a very famous essay called Shooting an Elephant. I don't know if anyone has ever read it. And we would study famous writers like George Orwell, who is an American, is an English writer, one of the most... What's that? Anyone have a question? If anyone has a question, by the way, I hear a couple voices. Don't forget to write it in the group chat anytime, because that way we can see it. So like if you can't see my screen, if you can't hear me, don't forget to type it in with here and myself and Ming can fix it. So that's what we're trying to do. If you take a look in front of you, you have basically, we're working from the writing first. This is the type of writing skills you'll learn how to develop so that you can answer questions, paragraphs, different type of essays. And it's useful in all of your subjects, not just English. It'll be useful in all of your social sciences for sure, psychology, sociology, anthropology, anything to do with humanities, English, philosophy. Anytime you have to write, anytime you have to organize information, there is really no subject where that is not done. So what I'm going to show you guys in a second, what this slide is here, is an example of how we can teach writing. And in a way, online writing creates new opportunities. What you see on the left would be an example of a question which a teacher would ask, a teacher like myself, and students would be able to answer, and we would be able to compare student answers. I'm going to show you in a second what that looks like. And on the right is a way for me, the teacher, to see very, very quickly who is performing well and who is understanding the material. The reason I'm showing you this is because our course is very, very teacher involved. In other words, there's a lot of material, but I am online helping you learn and tracking your learning, supporting your learning. So it's really a course which is for anyone who wants to develop writing skills. Here is a sample lesson. And I'm going to move out of the PowerPoint now. Hold on a second. And let me stop sharing for a second. So now I guess you guys can see me. Fine. That is the background. That is the first idea of what we are trying to do. Does anyone have any questions? Just type in. Fair enough. If you don't have anything else to say, Ming, I'm going to jump back in. Ming says, okay. So look, what do you guys want to know? Well, what exactly are we doing? Here's an example. Here is Google Classroom. Google is an incredible company. They have created a new way to help educate students by creating all this online platform where we can post material. This is one type of class. What do you see here? These question marks represent small assignments. Some of you guys heard of this assignment where you have to answer an open-ended question. I asked you guys to answer some of these assignments. We're going to talk about it in a second. What else is there here? Here's where we have the material. The material ranges, but in this example, we have, for instance, a document on how to write a short answer, a short story by a famous author, a movie by on that short story, and a form which you fill out, an assignment. Let me get a bit more specific. Okay, so imagine you come into the class. What do you see? Well, you would see something like this in the beginning. This is Google Form. And here is a short answer question. And I asked some of the students before you guys came into the class, oh, here is a basic question. Identify an important environmental issue. Use specific details to explain why it's important. Now, one of the amazing things with Google Classroom, 3 of you guys answered. But when it comes to actually talking about the material, so what I do in the beginning of the class, skip over the emails, skip over the marks. Well, here we have your answers. Now, this is why it's very interesting. Why? Because I can review your answers, compare your answers with each other, and I don't actually have to talk about your names, right? So in these cases, these 3 students, who all of them answered the question fairly well, they have a chance to have their work evaluated and analyzed. That is one of the ways which we can improve your writing very, very quickly. So the question is, okay, so how are we going to do it? I asked this, here's identify an important environmental issue, use specific details to explain why it is important. This is an exact example of a question which you would get, at the end of grade 10. How do you answer short answer questions? Well, in the first day of the class, up here, this is what we talk about. This is a document. This would be an example of something which we would learn in the first class. And what does it say? It says how you're supposed to answer an open-ended question. How do you an open-ended question? They have a strategy here. You answer with a complete sentence. You bring in some specific information. You explain how the quote supports the answer, and you repeat. It seems very simple, is very simple. The hard part is just practicing it and developing it. And what do they call this thing? Well, there's an ape, like a monkey, so APES. That's the first thing you learn on the first day. So what does the teacher, me, what do I notice? I go back to your work, and I would say to myself, okay, these students, do they know how to answer this question? Do they know how to write it in the way that the OSSLT wants you to write short questions? Well, what's the first part? Now, this kind of works better if I ask some students. So, maybe I'll ask you this because I can see some of your names. And if you don't want to answer, you can just say pass. But if you do want to answer, it might be kind of fun. Like Daniel, I see there's a student named Daniel. This APES here, what is the first thing? Whenever you answer a question, what does it say you're supposed to do? What do you think, Daniel? You want to turn on your mic and give it a chance? What's it say? Oh, there's Daniel. Answer the question with a complete sentence. Yeah, the first thing in the APS, whenever you have a short answer question, the first thing you do is you answer with a complete sentence. So when I come into the class and I want to look at some of the work, do we have students answering the question with a complete sentence? Well, identify an important environmental issue. The first sentence should say one type of environmental issue is da-da-da, and this is why it's important. Okay, here's the first one. The first student says climate change is an important environmental issue that affects all of us today. Okay, this sentence, there are many. One of them is air pollution. Air pollution means when oxygen gets polluted. air pollution is important because. So what I would say is, okay, this person who wrote this answer wrote in 4 sentences what they're supposed to write in 1 sentence, which is what Daniel said. What you're supposed to do is answer the question with a complete sentence. Air pollution has become an unavoidable reality in the lives of urban residents around the world. So I see this a lot of time with students. Whoever wrote this, you can see is a very intelligent student, comfortable with writing, but does this answer the question? Does this follow this APES? Well, in this case, it doesn't really. It's not strong enough. And so this is the type of feedback which you get. The way to succeed in this course is to practice. So you would get lots of questions of these type to begin. What else would I say? What's the second thing a person has to do? After you answer the question with a complete sentence, you prove your answer by bringing evidence or quote. By the way, I don't expect you guys to know this stuff. I'll learn about your writing skills as we go, but I'm just showing you how I would evaluate it. So after the A section, now we look for the P. Is there some type of proof and is it explained? Well, this answer here introduced some proof, which is great, and then explained. This one here, well, this has a rhetorical question, but there is no proof. This one here, there is lots of general information, which is useful, and an explanation. The other thing I would look for is at the end, the APES, is the answer summarized? This is something students very often forget to put in their short answers. Really, the purpose of the short answer is to show someone, is to start with the answer. You answer the question, you bring in some evidence, you explain the evidence, and then you summarize it. Do these answers have that? Well, not really. What you have here are things like, if we don't face the problem of climate change, the human race could disappear. Well, that's useful. That information is true, but that's not what you're asked to do here. A way to prevent this from happening is that we need to reduce the amount of trees being cut away, the way the trees work. Generally, in these type of answers, you don't use the first person, but okay, this is some information, but it's not summarizing what happened in the answer. And I would do it with this one. The point, just to repeat myself, and I know I'm going to repeat myself several times in this. Oh, someone have a question here? The student, Joanna says the student apparently answered with more than 100 words. Is it good or bad? We don't really count the words, but let me tell you a secret which teachers know, okay? Sometimes if a student doesn't know the answer, what he or she will do will write down everything he or she has ever heard about the topic. So sometimes you'll see, now these are all not bad. This one is the biggest one, I guess. But when we teachers see like 300 words, 400 word answers, we know that the student feels uncomfortable. Sorry. In this particular case, writing more than 100 words, you should try to write about 100 words or less. If it's a couple more, it doesn't matter. And I am not trying to emphasize things like your word length. What we're trying to emphasize and teach is your ability to think. Your ability to think critically, your ability to organize information. Fine. What else did I want to say about that? The only other thing I wanted to mention is that over time, you will get these type of rubrics. And so this is an example of an OSSLT question. So the question I asked you guys was about an environment. This is about an event. Here is how they score it. The way they score it is they make sure that students answer with specific information. My job as your teacher is to make sure that when you write these answers, you're going to do it in a format which gets this high mark. So you're trying to get 30 in this bin. The OSSLT, the good news is it's very straightforward. Sometimes it's almost like too mechanical. Sometimes students who want to be creative thinkers, and there's usually some writers who are very, very creative, they get a little bit bored because the answer is so predictable. But that's good for you. That means that you can study how to do well in the OSSLT quite easily. Okay, so let me go back to our class. So here is Unit 1A, almost exactly like it would appear on the first day of class. So some people would have answered this short answer question I just showed you. I would have talked about it. Then we would come with the lesson. This is where it starts to get interesting, because one of the wonderful things about teaching writing is that we actually learn writing by reading. We read from very, very established, accomplished authors, and we basically study some of their work, or we enjoy some of their work. So what would happen here? You have this APES document, and you have this story, Little Red Riding Hood. Has anyone ever heard of Little Red Riding Hood? I mean, it's a story for kids, right? Does anyone know what happens in Little Red Riding Hood? Kirkby says, yes, Little Red Riding Hood. So what would we do? Here is Little Red Riding Hood, a very, very cute movie of Little Red Riding Hood. I'll show a little bit in a second. Then we would take a look at the actual poem which Roald Dahl wrote. So let me just show you how it would go. We would start with this. Now this, I'm gonna let it play for a bit. You know, this is Little Red Riding Hood for babies, right? Maybe like 7, 8 years old. And it starts once upon a time, and it's a very sweet story. Let me just fast forward it a little bit. You'll see she's cute.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in a village near a big forest. Her grandmother had made her a beautiful red cloak.
La-di-da-di-da-di-da, her grandma. Then there is this wolf who's not a good guy. There he is, he's kind of cute. And remember, this has to be like for kids to make them happy. Okay, fine. Let me just forward it in the end. I mean, I don't want to take up too long. Spoiler alert, you know, the wolf tries to eat her. They chase the wolf out of town, blah, 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 blah. He runs away. There's probably happy music.
Little Red Riding Hood learned her lesson, and she never, ever talked to strangers again.
Fine. Little Red Riding Hood. Now, what does that have to do with us? Well, the guy we're studying, his name is Roald Dahl. He read the story of Little Riding Hood, and he said, blech, I am not going to write a story which is about kids, you know, happy ending and everything is so sweet. I am going to write a different story. And what we would be doing is reading Roald Dahl's story, which is a different version of Little Red Riding Hood, much more stimulating. I wonder if I should read it. Let me ask one of you guys to read it. I mean, it rhymes. It's not so hard to understand. Can I get, let's see, well, maybe Hannah. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, one word, the only word you ever really, really need to know for this class is pass. You know, pass. If you don't want to read, you don't have to. But if you do want to read, great. So if you don't want to do it, you can always pass. Let's just read a little bit of this poem just to see that this guy is like, he's a lot of fun. Okay, Hannah, you want to read a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
The Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. As soon as Wolf began to feel that he would like a decent meal, he went and knocked on Grandma's door. When Grandma opened it, she saw the sharp white teeth, the horrid grin, and Wolf said, "May I come in?" Poor Grandma was terrified. "He's going to eat me up," she cried. And she was absolutely right. He ate her up in one big bite.
Wonderful. So what I would do generally, I would do things like I would let someone read it, and maybe if there was some vocabulary I thought which was difficult, I would explain it. This was pretty straightforward. There's this wolf who sees his grandma. Okay, let's read a little bit more. Go ahead, Anna.
But Grandma was small and tough, and And Wolfie wailed, "That's not enough. I haven't begun to feel that I had a decent meal." He ran around the kitchen yelping, "I've got to have a second helping," then added with a frightful leer, "I'm therefore going to wait here till little Miss Red Riding Hood comes home from walking in the wood." He quickly put on Grandma's clothes. Of course he hadn't eaten those. He dressed himself in a coat and hat. He put on shoes, and after that he even brushed and curled his hair. Then he sat himself in Grandma's chair.
Okay. So let's see if we can get one more reader. And then I will show you guys the movie. But basically you've got the story, which is an obvious story of Little Red Riding Hood, but Roald Dahl is going to change it. What we would do is we would read this story till the end. Thanks for doing it, Hannah. How long is it? Maybe 2 pages, right? Then I would say to you guys, okay, why don't we watch it in a different form? And why don't we see how Roald Dahl is different? Here is his movie. The graphics are terrible because this is in like 1990, but basically they're gonna read the poem exactly like Hannah was reading it. And let's just watch it. It's only 3 minutes. We'll figure out what happens to the Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, sorry about the bad graphics. Here we go.
Roald Dahl's Revolting Rhyme.
Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. As soon as Wolf began to feel that he would like a decent meal, he went and knocked on Grandma's door. When Grandma opened it, she saw the sharp white teeth, the horrid grin, and Wolfie said,
"May I come in?"
Poor Grandmama was terrified. "He's going to eat me up," she cried. And she was absolutely right. He ate her up in one big bite. But Grandmama was small and tough, and Wolfie wailed,
"That's not enough. I haven't yet begun to feel that I have had a decent meal."
He ran around the kitchen yelping,
"I got to have another helping."
then added with a frightful leer,
"I'm therefore going to wait right here till little Miss Red Riding Hood comes home from walking in the wood."
He quickly put on Grandma's clothes. Of course, he hadn't eaten those. He dressed himself in coat and hat. He put on shoes, and after that he even brushed and curled his hair, then sat himself in Grandma's chair. In came the little girl in red. She stopped. She stared. And then she said, "What great big ears you have, Grandma."
"All the better to hear you with."
The wolf replied. "What great big eyes you have, Grandma," said Little Red Riding Hood.
"All the better to see you with."
The wolf replied. He sat there watching her and smiled. He thought,
"I'm going to eat this child. Compared with her old grandmama, she's going to taste like caviar."
Then Little Red Riding Hood said, "But Grandma, what a lovely great big furry coat you have on."
"That's wrong,"
cried Wolf.
"Have you forgot to tell me what big teeth I've got?"
Okay, now watch. This is where Roald Dahl, the writer, is a little bit different. This is different than any Little Red Riding Hood you've seen before.
"Ah, well, no matter what you say, I'm going to eat you anyway."
The small girl smiles. One eyelid flickers. She whips a pistol from her knickers. She aims it at the creature's head, and bang, 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 she shoots him dead. A few weeks later, in the wood, I came across Miss Riding Hood. But what a change. No cloak of red, no silly hood upon her head. She said, "Hello, and do please note my lovely furry wolf skin coat."
I mean, I can't believe that's a children's rhyme. If any of you guys did not know what he says at the end, I wonder if anyone understands what happens at the end. Here's the last one. The wolf says he's going to eat her, right? And it says the little girl smiles, one eyelid flickers. That means it moves up and down. She whips a pistol from her knickers. She aims it at the creature's head, and bang, 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 she shoots him dead. A few weeks later in the wood, I came across Miss Riding Hood, but what a change! No cloak of red, no silly hood upon her head. She said hello, and please do note my lovely furry wolfskin coat. Who understands what she did? Oh, Kirkby wrote something. Yeah, she took the wolf. This is the I've never seen a Little Red Riding Hood like this before. And that's what this guy Roald Dahl, the guy who wrote this, does. So the host has spotlight. Okay. So sorry, I didn't know what that said. So what happens? So sorry if I go back. We look at this material, we read the story, build up some vocabulary. We see the original Little Red Riding Hood. We see the one Roald Dahl did, and then you get an assignment. Here's the assignment. Do you recognize, well, what you're looking at here is a very, very general assignment. How would you describe the wolf? Bring evidence from the story, use APES format. So to make this more interesting, to make this writing class more interesting, we're trying to review and study, interesting content. And Roald Dahl is the first writer who we're going to study. I don't think there can be anyone more interesting than him. How would you describe Little Red Riding Hood? Bring evidence from the story, use APES. So this is a type of relationship in terms of the class. We'll be reading some things. You guys will be writing. I will be checking your writing. The next day we improve upon it. Let me just go back to the class. So here would be the assignment. Just to show you a lot of this stuff, Google Classroom, this question here, this means like introductory question, which we ask. And then here, this means the material, and here means the assignment. When you do the assignment, everyone can click on this. I'll click on it now just for a second. And it takes you to the assignment. And then you answer it by the deadline, hopefully. I see it. And eventually we'll be putting on some marks. And the marks are just to help you guys see where you're at. Let me just go a little bit further. So that would be the first class, for instance, which we might review. What happens in the second class? Here would be the second class. Well, we would review the answers from before, and we would look at another Roald Dahl poem about three little pigs, also very, very original. And then we would study what it means to be a character. We would look at some literature, some short movies on characterization, also borrow from some movies. And then you would have an assignment again. This assignment on the three little pigs is a bit more complicated. If you don't mind, just let me scroll back for a second. Here is your open-ended question strategy, how to answer a short sentence. Sorry, how to write a short answer. At the bottom of it is how to write a longer short answer, which is APEPEPES. That's how you'd write a paragraph. So in the end, what you notice is in terms of what to learn from the course, you learn the information, there's not that much. The way you learn is by practicing. That's where the growth comes as a writer. So you'll have a chance to practice several times using this APES and then using this. And it gets progressively harder and more challenging. And that's basically the course. You'll find that over 8 weeks, we've got all of the units written here. We move from paragraphs eventually to essays. We will start reading some very, very well-known essays. I mentioned George Orwell, Jack London is another one. You'll learn how to present some of your work as well. Writing also extends to learning how to present. You'll do other exercises, writing exercises like writing news reports. At the very end, you learn to write an opinion essay. Actually, I'll show you something very cool. I didn't actually think that we would do it, but just so it's a little bit spontaneous. Let's see, do we have it here? There are high school student competitions going on. The New York Times has one, for example, where they want to know, can you write an opinion essay? Could you answer this question? Could you give a student opinion? And we'll read some very, very capable students who write about this. You'll start giving opinions like this. Okay, so let me go back here. That, my friends, is pretty much what I wanted to talk to you guys about. Hopefully you have a good sense of it. I am here. I am very interested in helping you develop writing skills, and we have a great opportunity to do it. So those of you guys who want to learn further, I look forward to getting to know you. Okay, Ming, with that said, I think I will hand it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so now it's your turn, and if your parents are around you, or maybe you yourself have questions, you can type it, and Andrew or me will be here to answer your questions.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just give them a few seconds to think about it. Well, Andrew, let me ask you a question. I mean, I have a question for you. So in terms of, practice writing, right? I mean, everybody's saying writing is hard. So I see that you're using a lot of videos, and you're using even like very, very present. I mean, like the article was, the New York Times article was like 2018, was very recent. So how did you choose those material? Let's say, why you choose Reading Hood for this writing course? What's the main purpose for that?
The main purpose, there's a couple reasons. One, we're trying to choose material which is consistent with the grade level for grade 7, 8, and 9. So it fits within what the ministry expects students to be able to understand. Two, one way to learn how to write and read is to understand the culture. And many of the works which we study come from the Western culture. And things from Western culture come up in our language all the time. So we choose works which we think are relevant historically. And then the other thing in terms of the New York Times, well, writing has changed, opportunities to write have changed, and we're trying to bring really up-to-date topics so you guys can see right away how writing helps you get involved. Because all those students who are giving their opinion questions are really getting involved. And that's what we want our students to do.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I have another question. So, well, maybe this question is more speaking for the students who are here, who are trying to figure out what question to ask. So if I'm a student, if I attend your class, how much writing I'm supposed to do?
I think what'll happen is you'll have, after each class, you'll have some type of assignment to do. And basically what's interesting about the class is those of you who like to work hard, like to practice, you can hand in your work, I will mark it, hand it back. And some students eventually hand in, one assignment a couple times. But those students who don't want to do it, who just want to do the basic, can have, I'd say, between 20 to 30 minutes after each class.
Okay. Yeah, well, definitely writing requires a lot of practice. The more practice you have, the better writer you will be. So it's all the time and effort you put in. Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Okay, so it seems that Andrew have done a good job explaining everything, and maybe I asked question for you guys already. So yeah, actually the program starts a week from now, right? We start the program on July 6th. So that runs on for 8 weeks. Well, you have a choice. You can sign up for the first 4 weeks, or you sign up for the whole 8 weeks. So it's your choice. As workshops, so you can always reach out to us through WeChat or through our website. So yeah, we're always there to answer your questions. And I hope we will be able to see you again in a week's time. Okay. Thank you, Andrew, for your time, and wish you a great weekend.
My pleasure.
Okay, so everyone else, thank you for joining us today. and wish everybody a great weekend. Bye.